Welcome to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. It's Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern, and you're listening to Starseed Awakening Radio. And here's your host, Miesha Johnston.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Starseed Awakening. I'm Miesha, your host, and I have a wonderful guest with me, Preston Dennett. He's an amazing man. He has written so many interesting books, with ranging from E.T., the contact from people that he has been working with. He's a wonderful researcher, and as well as out of body and Area 51 books, and he's going to be talking about all the books and the people that he's worked with. He just is such an interesting man and a good friend. So I would like to just tell you a little bit about the group here before I introduce him and have him start sharing with you. First of all, it's Starseed Awakening on a meetup site. That group, I have two support groups. One is a group for experiencers to come into my home, and that is the third Thursday of the month. And then the first Thursday of the month, I have psychic development group where we're working on our psychic development. And in fact, we're working on astral traveling. So I've got some questions for Preston later. So this should help me a lot. Also, the Starseed Awakening organization we have on the internet, which is the Facebook. I have Starseed Awakening and ET Contact Experiencer group, which is a group for people who are experiencers and want to share and talk with other people in a private setting. Because I do have Google Hangouts support groups on every Sunday from 11 to 3 Pacific Standard Time. And those are for people who are experiencers or feel like they're starseeds and they're waking up. I also have Starseed Awakening, which is for people who just feel like they're waking up. They're not sure if they have an experience, but they want to talk to like-minded people. So that is also a meetup site. And then I have MK Ultra Mind Control, Super Soldier My Lab, and Ritual Abuse Group, which is one group, and that is for people, and it's also a very closed private group for people only who have had these experiences, so they can feel safe and secure in talking with other people. And from that, I have the Google Hangout group, which is every Wednesday at 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So you can find any of my groups if you go to my website, starseedawakening.org. And also my email is starmiesha99. Also, I have a wonderful project that I'm working on with some other people, which is Thrive at My Education. This is done in the Las Vegas, Nevada division. So we're going to be opening school for the wonderful children that are crystal children, indigo, rainbow children. Those are the children that the school system puts in special programs. They label them with things of ADD, ADHD, ODD, dyslexia, Asperger's, speech impediments, even autism. So these schools are going to have children have the ability to learn the way they learn, not in a box where you have to just learn just this way, and the teachers are there just to teach you, to get you into a programming so that you later on can go work for the man, work for the system and sit in your cubicle. We want these kids to be able to be more and all that they can be, and provide a platform of knowledge and a place of love, equality, and nurturing of these individual children's unique abilities. Because they are quite amazing. And any of you who have these children can attest to the fact that their consciousness is higher, they have gifts and abilities, and their imagination is amazing, and they need to be in a school where they are not hampered. So that's Thrive at My Education. If there's anyone who is interested in it, in any part of it, whether they would like to be we don't actually plan on having, we have teachers, but we do not instruct them as teachers. There will be more facilitators. And so if anyone is a teacher and would like to now be in a program that gives them the freedom to teach the children from their heart and teach the children the right way, please contact us. And if you'd like to get involved or donate, please contact me at starseedawakening.org. Our Thrive site should be open here very soon. We are waiting till our completely get our 501c3 nonprofit status set up, and that should be in the next month or so. So now I'd like to tell you about my guest, Preston. Preston and I met at UFO Con. Actually, we met years and years ago, and we had a wonderful conversation then and everything. But at UFO Con this year, we got to know each other a lot better, and I saw a completely different side of Preston other than just the author. I believe this man has so much going on in his own experience that he probably hasn't quite yet touched on yet. But he's going to be sharing with you about all his books. He has the first book that I read of his was Healing ETs, I believe is what the name of it was. And it was an extraordinary book because it was the first book that dared to talk about that the ETs actually are a positive and have, our consciousness in mind, and that they really want to help us and assist us and heal us. And in fact, I think I'm going to ask him some questions about this, but I feel that many of us have been actually vaccinated against some of the pernicious diseases that they have out there, or the chemtrails and things like that, by our ET galactic families to assist us in staying well, because I am so much healthier than anyone of my age group, and I've always, I don't catch the colds, and there's so many other people in my groups that I feel the same way. So I just want to stop talking now and let you talk, Preston. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, Miesha, and thanks for the glowing introduction there. I'm really excited about being on the show.
Great. So, Preston, how did it all start for you?
Well, not by choice, I'll tell you that. I was skeptical, actually, of these kinds of things. And not only skeptical, I was really skeptical. And I think because my parents were pretty skeptical of this kind of thing, life after death and ghosts and UFOs was not something that we ever talked about, and not really in a serious way. But I was around 19 years old, and there was this report on the news. Let me see, how old was I? I don't know. It was 1986. And there was this sighting over Alaska, and by this pilot. And didn't believe it for a second. It's now a very famous case. Japan Airlines saw this very large UFO pacing their their commercial jet, and for several miles, for quite a long time, on radar too, on their onboard radar and on ground radar. It's a huge case. But none of this was in the news. It was very tongue-in-cheek. They laughed nervously about it, and I thought, well, this pilot's crazy. He saw a reflection off the ice cap. He saw, something else, a hallucination. He's misperceiving. He's lying. This is what I'm thinking. And, I remembered my brother coming into the house years earlier, screaming, "Oh, I saw a UFO." And we all just kind of looked at him and laughed. and that was the last he said, right? Because obviously he said something about hovering lights, and I don't really remember. But I asked him about this pilot, and he's like, "Oh, I saw a UFO." And he described actually chasing this craft across the San Fernando Valley here in California with his two friends, who I later interviewed. And so it went on from there. I've been working at this office for some years and knew the people there very well, and asked the lady sitting next to me, Diane, what she thought of this pilot. And she's like, "Oh, me and my entire family watched this darting object over our cabins up in the Cleveland National Forest for several hours. And it was not a plane or a helicopter. And, I knew she was telling me the truth, but I couldn't imagine what she was saying. And then Dorothy walks in, and she hears us, and she's like, "Oh, a UFO followed me and my friend home from the library. It came shooting down from the sky, hovered right over the car. My mom saw it, my friend saw it, and it followed our car home from the library." And she says, "Preston, it's the weirdest thing? Our home is only 5 minutes away, and it took us an hour to get there. When we got home, it was 10:15, and they left at 9.
Oh, yes.
And so this was, before Bud Hopkins' book had, been republished by, a major publisher. And it was before all this subject really broke out into the mainstream. So she had no idea what was going on. And this is how I kind of dived into the thing in the deep end. I started getting abduction cases at this point. My sister-in-law, I found out, had a face-to-face encounter with a gray-type ET. I had a friend who had a missing time encounter. So I bought all the books. I started joining the UFO groups. Mm-hmm. I bought these UFO books thinking I'm going to find an explanation for this. Mm-hmm. And the explanation was ETs. So it really upset me. I was scandalized. I was hit like a ton of bricks. It was not good news. And everyone in my family and my friends thought I'd gone off the deep end, and I had, because I was really upset about this alien invasion that no one was even talking about. So that's kind of how it all began, and just snowballed from there. I wrote an article for the local newspaper about sightings, and that got the front page, and kind of developed into a book later on.
Front page? It got front page?
Yeah, the editor was just head over heels about the article.
Oh.
Couldn't believe it. I kind of hit him with the same ton of bricks I'd been hit with. Mm-hmm. And I'd interviewed 4 people in my neighborhood who had very close encounters. And this was in Topanga Canyon. And at the time, this is where I grew up. Never saw a UFO, never saw anything. Turns out it's a UFO hotspot. And a couple of years later, would experience this massive wave of sightings. But this was before this. I found one case of a lady, good friend of ours, who's a pilot, a scuba diver, a really credible person, who saw a glowing egg-shaped object move over her home. She and her friend saw it. This was another thing that surprised me. I always thought people who saw UFOs were alone. No, almost every single person I interviewed had someone else with them to view this, which, I'm like, wow, this is, and I would interview them as well. So I knew pretty early on this stuff was real and hitting home in a big way.
Yes, it's totally real.
Yeah, so it just kind of moved on from there. I wrote, after writing a newspaper on, and another case of that in the early days was that I wrote for that article in the newspaper, the Topanga Messenger, just blew me away. It was these 4 guys who lived on an old canyon in Topanga Canyon. This is a pretty rural part of the canyon. And they saw this one light or kind of glowing object pass over the house, maybe about 400 or 500 feet up. And that was followed by 2 other very similar or identical looking objects. And at this point, another object came, and it was massive. And this one was really low, maybe 100 feet above the house, very large, not saucer-shaped really. They said it was oblong-shaped or a weird shape they couldn't quite describe, and covered with little lights around the perimeter, made a very low buzzing noise, and at one point sent a beam of light directly onto the house, on the side of the house where the artist's den was, and searched it as if looking for something, and then lifted up. I interviewed every witness who saw this. There were 4 of them. One guy, Miesha, said, he didn't give me a very good interview. He's like, yeah, there was something, I asked him what it looked like. He's like, I don't know. I was too scared to look.
Oh, he's too scared to look.
He's like, honestly, I wanted to hide under the house. And another guy, Gabe is his name, he had seen a UFO previously. And so he was very interested in the subject. And when this thing came down, he's like, he wanted to jump into the beam of light is what he told me. And he gave the best interview of all of them. And described this object very clearly. Instead, it just moved off, and at one point actually seemed to turn transparent. When I heard that, I'm like, oh God, what does this mean? I didn't want, I didn't want to edit his interview or any way, but I wondered about it. And later on, I would get other cases, of UFOs turning transparent and then kind of disappearing. Mm-hmm. So, and then this was followed by another object. So they saw this fleet of UFOs right over the canyon there. Oh. And really an amazing sighting, and kind of marked the beginning of this huge wave of sightings, which was, the subject of my third book, UFOs over Topanga Canyon.
So, Preston, if I may ask a question here in between, if you don't mind, I'd like to know, did you, after your research, after your interviewing with them, did you get the feeling that these were extraterrestrial, off-planet origin, or did you think that there's a possibility that could have been government, since, All
right. No, right off from the bat, I have the sense that these are ETs. Certainly to a certain extent, we have the evidence that we have, and we have to make our conclusions. Mm-hmm. And I know there are different theories for a lot of UFO activity, ranging from even, demonic,
right.
To, angelic, to interdimensional, to time travelers. I think the most popular is extraterrestrial, and I'm a big believer in it, because the fact is we're here, and, if there's got to be people like us in a physical way,
Of course.
If you know what I mean, on planets and so on.
Yeah, there's got to be a bunch more 3D people. If they've been around longer, they're going to be advanced, and their craft are going to be more advanced than anything we've got. So,
and I think this is the best theory to fit the evidence that we have, including crashed UFOs and the ET bodies, and the craft that people are seeing, which certainly appear to be metallic and are leaving landing traces, and certainly appear to be vehicles. I think the ET explanation is by far the strongest one, and as far as them being military, or certainly there are cases of that. I have no doubt, but in my experience, what I'm finding is that these craft are being chased by UFOs, and by military craft. Mm-hmm. So in the Topanga Canyon wave, for example, these craft would come around, and they would be chased around by helicopters. I've got several cases of that. Many people called me up complaining about increased helicopter activity in the canyon, where they would hover for hours at night. And this would be, on the nights people would later tell me that they had an encounter or something like this. One a perfect example of this is this guy who lives very high in the canyon. Now, he's a teacher at Santa Monica College. Really upstanding guy, mm-hmm. The head of his department. Mm-hmm. And woke up one night to see these helicopters going through the canyon at a really low level. And he sees also an emergency vehicle up on the fire break. Now, a fire break is not a main road, and cars do not travel at that speed that he saw. He's like, this is really dangerous. What is going on? Mm-hmm. This is at night, and these helicopters are sending down searchlights looking for things. He's thinking, oh, this is, a crime in progress. There's a drug bust going on. This is Topanga Canyon. It's got its reputation.
Oh.
Certainly for, all kinds of stuff going down.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's out there on his deck observing this from a very good viewpoint when he sees this, what he described as mirror-like, like chrome, a craft, a perfect flying saucer, your classic flying saucer, but mirror-like. And about 100, maybe 200 feet up off the valley floor there in the middle of the canyon, going right above the boulevard that leads through the canyon down to the ocean. And it was obviously evading the helicopters and moved at a pretty leisurely pace, maybe about 50 miles per hour, straight down towards the ocean, which is, where a lot of this activity seems to be originating.
Mm-hmm.
And this was clearly, the military chasing these guys. If this is military, why are we so interested in them? And there was another case, pointing towards the same problem. That's in the canyon. This gentleman who was having landings next to his home told me about it, and I knew he was telling me the truth because he told me details that were on the police tape that had been leaked to me in which people were calling, reporting their encounters.
Huh?
So he knew about this. He's like, yeah, and I've got this other lady who's a friend of mine, and she's having encounters with different types of ETs. Now, I wanted to interview this lady. She refused and was actually really upset when I found out about her case. She's a very private person and does not want to get involved in this. It's causing great upheavals in her life. But the story that I heard secondhand from this other UFO witness is that she is having encounters with multiple different types of ETs. She lives here in the canyon, and she said that the encounters were going on a nearly nightly basis, and she was also under government surveillance.
Yeah.
And they were totally aware of what was going on, and at one point, came into her home and interviewed her about her. And not only that, asked her to, come to another place and be interviewed by other officials. She refused, and they forced her to do it anyway. She said it was like testifying in some sort of court or some sort of thing. She had to answer all these questions about what was happening to her. Mm-hmm. So this is what I've seen many times. Melinda Leslie has reported this type of thing. Lycia Davidson being abducted by the military basically after your encounter.
Right.
And
Melinda and I both were abducted by the military.
Right, so you know of this, and that I've seen, and certainly I have seen military, or I've heard of cases where the military is present during abductions, so I think there's something to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I've seen too.
And also, yes, I think that they probably do mimic some abductions, but there's too many cases. I mean, there's this case of this guy investigated in the Midwest, and he was about 8 years old, a paper boy delivering papers in the pre-dawn hours, riding his bicycle through the neighborhood. It's totally deserted when this light drops down from the sky and hovers over him. Next thing he knows, it's darting away, and it's now daytime, and he rushes home and find all the neighbors are calling, "Where's our paper?" And he's missing, a couple of hours. And later, many, many years later, actually what happened is that following that encounter, he became very ill and was not even able to garner the energy to get out of bed and missed the whole summer. And doctors were not able to diagnose his illness and just gave him kind of a vitamin cocktail. But he spent that summer in bed. He had like flying saucer sickness. And later under hypnosis, he recalls seeing not gray type ETs, but another type who basically, very simple abduction case, nothing other than that they were interested, in examining him. And now, if this is military, there doesn't seem much point to it. And because there's so many cases like this that the numbers of military personnel needed to do this would be astronomical. And if you look at it, coupled with all the sightings, which form a continuum, there's no possible way that the military it can explain abduction phenomena.
Right.
It's just not the explanation. The people are being contacted by ETs. There's no doubt about it, in my mind.
Oh, yeah, no doubt in my mind as well. And of course, the sections of our government have a lot of interest in what goes on in those experiences. So they re-abduct us. And, so that's where that comes in. But, well, I appreciate you answering that question because, there's a lot of different opinions about it and everything. But I wanted to know from your point of view and what, with all the many, many, many cases you have been, which in fact, have you got a number? How many cases you've investigated?
Not an exact number. I know it's, in the hundreds.
In the hundreds, yeah. And it looks like we're going on break.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
Please, anything but sitar music. Yeah, that's better. You're invited to Sacred Cow Barbecue. I'm your host, Patricia Aiken. My guests will free your mind from mainstream manure. No subject is off limits. Don't believe everything you think. It's BS. Just our collective belief system programmed into us. Question everything. Come hungry for truth because that's what we're serving. Sacred Cow Barbecue, Tuesdays from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern in Studio B.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Join us on Monday nights for Odyssey at 10 p.m. Eastern Time in Studio B with your host, Michael David. We discuss all types of ancient and modern mysteries, from the Anunnaki to legends and mythology. We often have live guests such as well-known authors and experts on many esoteric topics. Join the intrigue and mystery every Monday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time in Studio B.
Hey everyone, it's Barbara Jean Lindsay, the Cosmic Oracle. If you have questions about your past lives or future plans, need answers from the cosmos about your love life or career, or just want to keep your finger on the pulse of the planet, check out my show, The Cosmic Oracle, here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Secret Society Revealed, with your host, Joseph Atwell, author of Caesar's Messiah, the Roman Conspiracy to Invent Jesus, and Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, the groundbreaking discoveries that gives us a new understanding of how governments and elites use mind control to manipulate their subjects. Join Mr. Atwell as he lifts the veils of deceptions of our modern world, Mondays, 12 noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Time on Revolution Radio.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
hello. We're back, and I wanted to first tell you Revolution Radio is all listener supported. So go to the donation page and push those buttons. There's all kinds of wonderful things you can get for your donation. And do donate, because we want to keep this freedom information coming through. And thank you, Revolution Radio. So let's get back to our guest, Preston. I wanted to open it up for questions. He loves to have questions in between, so you can get all the good information. The telephone number to call in is 347-688-2902. That's 347-688-2902, and that's Studio A. So, Preston, we were talking about Topanga Canyon before I kind of got us off on that question about what ships are back engineered military and what ships are ET. And so, but can you tell us more about the Topanga Canyon, because I know this was a very big case.
Yeah, this was actually kind of marked Topanga as a UFO hotspot, is what I found out. This was a wave of sightings, not only sightings for that matter, landings, car chases, and more, which occurred from 1994 to 1996. This was when it was really active, and actually began on June 14th, 1992, when one of the most incredible sightings certainly I've ever heard of occurred. I've interviewed over 20 separate, independent adult witnesses to the events on that night, and keep finding more.
Wow.
It's incredible what happened. A bunch of people called the police that night reporting UFOs over the Santa Monica mountain range, mainly Topanga Canyon, which is located right there, kind of west of Los Angeles, between Santa Monica and Malibu. And one call came to the police and reported that they were driving through the canyon northward when they were being followed by 3 UFOs. And they pulled over and watched these 3 craft, typical flying saucers, dart around slightly and then dart off. And this was followed almost immediately by another call that came into the station of a couple, a husband and wife. She's a nurse. She had a really good job. And they were in tears. They said that they had driven through the canyon earlier when this object started following their car. They became very nervous because they felt it was following them, and suddenly it was over their car. It sent down this beam of light and lifted them up off the road.
Whoa.
They had missing time, and they're calling the police in tears, really shaken up. Mm-hmm. The wife was too upset to talk, and this is what they reported. They got home by the grace of God, they said. And
so when you talked to them, did they have any memories of what had happened in that missing time?
No, and here's the thing. I didn't get to talk to them. This was, Miesha, on the police tape, which was actually kind of snuck out of the police station through an inside source.
Oh, good for you.
And I tried to get an official, legitimate copy, but I told it it was a big ordeal to do that. Go to court, basically. Mm-hmm. And so I already had the tape, and there was several other calls on it. So no, I didn't get to interview them, but they were clearly sincere.
Okay.
Another call came from a teacher who had just recently moved to the canyon. He was in his home with his wife when suddenly the interior of the home lit up like daylight. It woke them up from sleep. They rushed outside, and here is this object hovering right over their house. Mm-hmm. And they said it was so bright, they couldn't really see what it was, but it was lighting up everything around them. They could hear a low buzzing noise, and then it just darted off straight up. And there was another guy driving the other way through the canyon south towards the ocean in his pickup truck, and suddenly he's surrounded by what he thought were helicopters harassing him. Except they were really low, he says, and made no noise. And chased him all the way through the canyon, several miles. So these were the calls that came into the police station. Meanwhile, the newspaper, the Topanga Messenger, where I'd written that article, is receiving calls, one from a doctor who said he saw this object dart across the sky that could not have been a shooting star. It was too slow. And it couldn't have been a plane. It was too fast. And another lady who lives high on the canyon and said there were all these beams of light shining down around her house. So this is just the tip of the iceberg, I find out, and there's a lot of other people who saw stuff that night because the newspaper calls me up and says, starts feeding me all these stories and says, investigate it. And so this began the biggest investigation, to this date of my life, so far at least.
Uh-huh.
And, wow.
So, in these cases, I'm always, of course, interested in the physical encounters because of my own background and my experience. So, did you get some stories about the actual physical encounters that happened during that Topanga Canyon?
Yeah, I would say probably the most interesting one was this couple who lived in the center of the canyon, where a lot of this stuff was going on, and in the months following this wave, they had this UFO landing outside their house on 2 or 3 days in a row, every couple of weeks or so.
Oh.
And what was weird is, she was pregnant with twins.
Uh-oh.
Now, there's this twin thing you may know
Uh-huh.
in the whole UFO phenomena, with twins being abducted or disappearing twins even.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what happened to her. Suddenly, one of her twins died in utero or went missing. She was rushed to the hospital, and they couldn't find any evidence of it. And the nurse came up to her later. She says, I shouldn't be telling you this, but this is weird. Your results are being sent to some really, not our normal lab, to some government lab.
Uh-huh.
So, and that's not the only case I have, of that type of thing happening. Another lady.
Do you think she might ever feel like she would talk to me? Because, I also facilitate hybrid groups and for people who've had that kind of contact. So maybe sometime you might talk to her about maybe joining our group. I'd love to talk to her.
Yeah, she's neat. I met the twin, actually, because he was having all these weird, unusual experiences with precognition and people rushing up to him, asking weird questions and saying strange things. And I lost track of her. I contacted her again, found her, and then lost track of her again. So I don't know where she is right now.
Well, yeah, if you give her later on, off air, if you can give me her name, that'd be great.
Yeah. But unfortunately, I don't know where she is now, but certainly she's not the only person I've interviewed who's had that type of experience. And one thing I just have to add, about this whole Topanga Canyon wave is on that night, all these people were seeing one or two craft. There was one couple I interviewed who live on Saddle Peak, it's called, which is one of the highest points in Topanga Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
And they were drawn out early in the evening by a group of 5 or 10 craft coming up from, not above, from below, which is very unusual because these things were not coming, swooping down from the sky. They were coming from some sort of base.
Whoa.
Apparently, because, they thought, wow, that's weird. Went back inside to watch the movie, and it happened again. And when it happened a third time, she started counting these craft. She said there was between 10 to 20 in each group, and it went on all night. And by the time it ended, it was still going on. They were too upset. They called the police the next morning. They were pretty upset by it.
Mm-hmm.
And she said she counted over 200 craft. And, the husband turned to her. I was there, interviewing face-to-face at the location. And he says, no, I think it was closer to maybe 100, 150. And I busted out laughing.
Still.
Right, still. That's way too many.
100 at one time is humongous. That's amazing. Wow.
The third case I have like that in this area. So these are huge amounts of craft that are coming up from below. And this is what I'm actually going to be speaking at an upcoming MUFON conference in November about this, what I believe is an undersea UFO base in the Santa Catalina Channel.
Ah, yeah, we're going to get you here for our MUFON here in Vegas soon, too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, because the vents are just hopping right now. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of activity in this Topanga Canyon area. Well, I think I finally figured out what's going on. But, wow, that was incredible wave of sightings involving the entire range of contact, and eventually became the subject of one of my books, UFOs over Topanga Canyon.
Oh, yeah. Okay. People should get that book and get more information. I am trying my darndest. I lived right off of a canyon that they said was a haunted canyon when I first moved to California. And what are the cities around it?
Well, there's Topanga, which has a reputation for UFOs. Laurel Canyon has a lot of ghost activity.
Okay, it might have been that one. I was trying to remember, but I know we had a lot of activity, and it was like they said, it was, this canyon's haunted, So, but very interesting. So, anything else that stands out on Topanga Canyon, or we better tell the whole book. Let's see. I know you have so many other books. I have a real interest in the UFO healing one. As I said, it was the first book of yours I read. So how about we talk about that one? And that was one of your first books you wrote, wasn't it?
Right. It was actually the first that got published. And I'm going to have to put together a sequel. In fact, I am.
Good.
Because that was, some years ago, nearly 10. Or maybe more than that. It's 1996. Yeah, more than 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. So that outlined 100 cases, which is a lot. And now I'm guessing there are well over twice that or more. But what I originally intended to do was write an article. Because I thought, there's this case of a police officer who was bitten by a baby pet alligator and was cured by a beam of light. There was a case of a doctor in France who I knew had an axe wound on his ankle and was partially paralyzed from the Algerian War. He was struck by a beam of light from a UFO, which healed both those at once. Mm. I knew of a case involving a Peruvian customs official who apparently went out into his balcony and saw this object pretty high up there, but suddenly he connects with it, and it sends down this violet beam of light, which strikes him on the head and chest and cures him of two conditions. Nearsightedness and rheumatism. So this turned out, those were just the tip of the iceberg. I'm like, that's interesting. I'll write an article about this. And found out that there were a lot of cases. People cured of a head cold, people cured of, several cases of eyesight cures, lung cures, kidney and liver cures, all kinds of cures of flesh wounds and things like this. Even serious diseases, muscular dystrophy, diphtheria, a possible case of HIV, bunch of cancer cases, tuberculosis. Wow.
I wanted to mention to you, I had another person on my show, and I'm going to have him on this show. But Brett Altman, yes, I think that's his name. He wrote The Children of the Greys, and in his experience, he was on board the ship, and there was this big, kind of like a board, but not really. But it had all this writing on it and everything. And he was told, well, this is the cure for cancer. And he said, can I have something to write it down? And they said, no, but we want you to know we have the cure for cancer. And he said, and he'd ask again, anything, just let me have a piece of paper and a pen, and I'll write down this. And they said, that is not, they wouldn't allow that. But so I thought you might find that interesting.
That is interesting, and not the only person who's, ETs have given cancer cures too. There were other cases like that. So I do find that interesting. And, Miesha, you mentioned, being blessed with good health. It's another thing I've heard from a lot of people. There's this one guy in, I think Ohio. I forget exactly where his location is. But he's a pretty old man. He's had this incredible contact with the ETs his entire life, where they would escort him to and from work. His whole family had seen these craft. He's had close-up sightings with these ETs, and he says he's been incredibly healthy his whole life, and still is, and has this incredible strength, and looks about 20 years younger, 30 years younger than he actually is. He's like
people tell me I look 20 years younger than I do, too. And I found that with people, with experiencers, that they do look much younger than their age.
Here's a kind of a weird parallel to this, which is just kind of tangentially connected. You know, in my latest book, UFOs over Nevada, I write a chapter on Area 51, and I've got all kinds of inside stories about it. And one I just had to tell came from Fate magazine, who conducted this experiment where they asked their readers to psychically explore Area 51, you know, via remote viewing or out-of-body experiences or impressions or what have you. And they got a huge response. And here's where it's got really interesting for me. First of all, it was all women. I thought that was very interesting. And involved 10 or so women who described, you know, what Area 51 is, and it turned out it was pretty much what researchers have verified in almost all respects. I mean, that we're reverse engineering these craft, the ETs craft are there, that there's bodies, and that there's even live ETs and different levels for different research, such as genetics and so on, right? And here's what just blew my mind, because their accounts are all matching, but there was 5 or so of these ladies who said the same thing that I had never heard before, which was that the people who work at Area 51, some of these higher level people who are working directly with the ETs, have been physiologically improved or altered by the ETs.
Wow. So
that they don't age in the same way that their health is improved. They have no illness, and they have these other ability type things, and have been genetically enhanced and altered to have, you know, good health, and are, you know, in some senses not even human, at least certainly not the way we are. And this is, I think,
that makes sense to me.
Right?
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Also, for the fact the ETs are not, depending on the group of them, some of the groups are not as hardy, and they don't want to be around humans that are weak and sickly or anything like that. So they probably make sure that they're nice and healthy before they spend much time with them.
Right. Well, what I found is that the ETs know more about the human body than we do.
Yes.
By far. Certainly, almost every abductee, well, not all, but what I hear is they call him the ET's doctor. There's always the doctor, you know, when they're being examined, this type of thing. So, yeah, they do know a lot about us. And as far as healing technology, they can heal just about anything, certainly chronic conditions. And for that matter, I think we have some of that technology, not a lot of it. And that's got to come out.
Yes, we do. Oh, yes, we do. You know, what do you think about this hypothesis? And you know, I thought about it for a long time, and I've heard a lot of other people agree to it. But that, and I would actually, my groups of ETs have told me that they're also from the future, and they're us in the future. So that would explain why they know all about our physiology. And
right.
It just makes sense to me that they know everything about us, and that would be why. Not because they're very intelligent and everything, but if they were us and they'd already gone through and they've changed their body structures and stuff, and now they've come back and said, you know what, that didn't really work very well, so now we're going to try to, with the hybrids, do it better this time. You know, that's my kind of take on it.
Yeah, no, I've certainly looked into this, and this is kind of the time traveler hypothesis, and there's some evidence to support this. I wrote an article about this, in fact, and collected a good dozen cases where people had been told directly by the ETs, you are us, we are you, we are the same, we are one, all different versions grammatically, all these different messages, which essentially said the same thing.
Exactly. I do channeling, and I do galactic languages, and they will talk to me in different galactic languages, and then when the translation comes through, they say the same similar things. You're my mother, you're my father, I'm your sister, I'm your brother. We are, and they'll just to try to explain this whole concept to me that we are one. So.
Yeah, there's a oneness to all of us that, you can, certainly yogis and mystics talk about this, which we are all connected in these amazing ways. And I think that's true with the ETs, who are extremely telepathic. And as far as them being time travelers, well, yeah, I've got a lot of cases where people have been abducted and put back, minutes later after having, a lengthy experience, or been pulled out of a car accident. Or one guy saw these grays walking towards him, looks around him, and everyone in his family is frozen. And not only that, the water coming out of the bucket is frozen, in time.
Wow.
So he's able to move, these grays are moving, and everything around him is frozen. So yes, there is something to this, no doubt. And I think the fact that they are interbreeding with us, or creating hybrids, so to speak, and the fact that there's human ETs among them often, and human Nordic type ETs reported, raises serious questions about human origins. Mm-hmm. And clearly, the fact that ETs are very Star Trek-y, with eyes, nose, mouth. They look like us. They've got hands, it's the human form. Mm-hmm. So this does seem to be, to a certain extent, what's happening, which, doesn't surprise me. Time is a slippery thing. It's kind of a factor of the physical plane. And this becomes more clear when you talk about out-of-body travel and things like this. But on the higher dimensions, time collapses, kind of. And faster-than-light travel is possible. And traveling through dimensions and times and alternate and probable realities, this sort of thing can get very, confusing. But yeah, I think there's some evidence to that. And I did have my own personal experience with that, mm-hmm. actually, mm-hmm. In which I had a kind of a lucid, I don't know how to describe this exactly, like a download maybe, mm-hmm. or a out-of-body experience, or a lucid dream, or vision. Mm-hmm. But what I saw was, the question was, who are the Greys and where do they come from? And what I saw was a human-looking person who's the first generation. And then I saw the next generation, and there had been a war, or there had been a genetic damage, and he had lost all his hair. Mm-hmm. And, some of his nose was, peeling off. In the next generation, the nose was gone, and the lips were badly damaged, and the ears were damaged, and it just went on for 10 generations. Wow. And I watched this face transform to a gray.
Wow.
And it was very vivid and very real, and very obviously the answer to the question.
Absolutely. That's amazing.
So, yeah, in my mind, I think that there is a human connection there.
Yes. Right. Wow. Yeah, I'd like to talk to you more in detail about that sometime, about your own, because you need to come to the Experiencing Group, because I know there's a lot more to what your encounters are. Encounters can come by way of dreams and astral dreams and things like that too. So you have to chat more. I wanted to tell you just a real quick thing that one time during an experience, my sons actually watched this, and they watched me go through a window that was
wow.
closed, right? And I asked the ETs, how did you get me through a window? And they said, we took you through a time when there was no window there.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Anti-aircraft guns went into action against unidentified aircraft in the Los Angeles area shortly after 3 a.m. Pacific wartime this morning.
We are far stronger than we were 10 weeks ago.
General Quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
You're nervous about your toes. I'll do the mastermind around here.
You who have not seen it do not know what hell looks like from the top.
Bam! Check it out every Tuesday and Saturday on Revolution Radio. It's a double dose of the internationally recognized renegade military historian Douglas Dietrich.
You'll stay right where you are till I tell you to move out.
Yeah, that's right. Tuesdays from 10 to midnight Eastern Time. Join Douglas Dietrich as he exposes the truth in hidden history on his show Critical Omissions. And then our human weapon of mass destruction is back once again to take your calls on Saturday Night Firing Lines. Both from 10 to 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Only on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Oh, Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio!
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello. Thanks for coming back. And I just wanted to, he just said that, but I want to repeat a very important message that this is a listener-supported radio station. So do donate as much as you can to keep it going. Because, you know, on my off time, I listen to a lot of the radio shows. And wow, you got some great information here that's coming in. So donate as much as you can. Thanks. You know, we were talking about time and all that. I just wanted to mention, after I mentioned my little story about the going through time when there was no time, if you haven't seen Interstellar, it's a great show that kind of shows the whole concept of how there is no time outside of Earth. Have you seen it, Preston?
No, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah, it's great. I mean, you can rent it on Redbox. I think that's what where I watched it. So
yeah, I've heard it was really good.
It is very good, very good. So, you know, talking more about the healing. When you were talking about the healing and you talked about the beams and things like that, were there specific experiences and people had that they physically saw the ETs do healing for them? Because I actually have a story about it after you know, like for instance, I have one of the children in my group was shown that how to do psychic healing, and she would be taken on board the ship, and she was shown for a long time. She watched what it was, and then she did it herself, and where she actually went in and did psychic healing, whether they used a real body or a holographic. I imagined a real body. But anyway, she says she was taught how to do psychic healing, and she was only 8 years old when she was telling me this. And she said, when the time of great change comes, I'll be one of the doctors. So how about you? Have you had experiences like that where ETs have actually done the healing?
Oh yeah. You get all types of cases. You know, not me personally, but I got cases where people just see a UFO hovering over their car, no beam of light, no nothing, and they're cured of, you know, say kidney stones. Or got cases where people are visited in their bedrooms by ETs and are cured there. I have cases, this surprised me, 10% of the cases were cases which occurred in hospitals, inside the hospital room.
Wow.
So these ETs visit people anywhere. And a large majority of the cases were on board, and people are not only being cured there, they're seeing other people being cured. Mm-hmm. In some cases, they see lots of people on board these craft, you know, being cured via beams of light, very much like you see on Star Trek.
Right.
Or sometimes significant operations. Some people are given pills. You know, some people aren't healed. They just see other people being healed. And yes, what you said, I've heard that exact phrase. When the time comes, when the great change comes, people are being taught how to do alternative healing. And this is one of what I would say 5 major themes of that people get when they're taken on board a craft. The most common, this is confirmed by Thomas Bullard, who was a pioneer in UFO research and conducted a study of 330 onboard cases, was that the most common event was a physical examination. And certainly I've heard that enough to know that that's true.
Mm-hmm.
But he said the second most common thing was messages, which fall into a number of categories. And
downloads.
Right, messages of various types, and which confirms exactly my research and what I'm hearing from a lot of other people. And mainly it's concerns about our environment, and by that I mean nuclear proliferation, pollution, overpopulation. There's also social concerns with greed and war. Warnings about that. And they're very interested in alternative sources of energy. Got a number of cases like that where people are shown the engine room and shown that there are free sources of energy out there, that you don't have to burn fossil fuels. A lot of cases like that, actually. Yeah. And a lot of cases of this other category which is more spiritual and kind of breaks down into alternative healing and psychic development. So some people are, shown how to go out of body. Some people are shown about their past lives. Some are shown, the negative belief systems that are surrounding the planet, which are actually like forms, actual physical things. And a lot of people are shown this alternative healing and shown how to do hands-on healing. And this, I have a whole chapter of that in the book, actually, because it was so consistent that many people who come away from their experiences doing alternative healing practices. And a typical example is this lady I interviewed, Pat Brown, a telephone operator, who saw ETs after seeing a channeler who claimed he was an ET. And she's like, oh, if you're an ET, I want to go on board your ship. Next thing she's having these encounters with greys, and which were violent, well, not violent, but unpleasant at first, and certainly unwanted, and evolved into this very spiritual thing, to where the point she quit her job. She's now does alternative healing with healing massages, and blue light comes out of her hands, this actual blue light. She's got multiple eyewitness testimonies and some really impressive results with, helping and healing people. And here's where it gets really interesting, is when she does this work, she says she has this image in her mind of these ETs, Gray-type ETs, and they're sitting there in their little craft, and they're operating these little dials, and they're looking at their little screens and helping to transmit this healing energy through her.
Ah, yes.
So it's a typical case of what I'm seeing. Yes, they're very interested in. So I think this bodes well, for our relationship with them.
It does.
Which is rocky, to say the least, with the Greys in particular. However,
people don't realize there's so many different Greys, and realize, the ones that we're talking about are not the same Greys that are seen in the underground bases, and they're also not the same Greys that have done, horrible, horrendous things to people. They're not.
No, I just got this email yesterday, Miesha, or maybe the day before, from this lady who says that she's enjoying this incredible good health too, and feels like the ETs are healing her at night, and she's contacting them through this kind of mentally. She sees them. She feels like she's mentally on board their ships. They're very, very loving, extremely loving. She says it's the most pure, naive, childlike love that comes from them, even though they're have this ageless wisdom that comes along with it. But yeah, it's incredibly positive for her.
Yes. Well, this is a way to explain some of the positive and the negative experiences. And some of the gray, there's and we're talking about some of the Greys that are in this area outside of Las Vegas, not Area 51, but another area that a whistleblower talked about. I don't know if he did it in private, so I'm not going to tell who it was. But anyway, he talked about how there was your adult Greys, your teenage Greys, and your children Greys. Now, the adult Greys don't do a lot of the actual coming down and taking, or what people want to call abducting them. because they can't handle our atmosphere. Whereas the teenagers can, and they are teenagers. Teenagers are not the most gentle and caring type, not always. So they may be a little more rough with the examinations and such. But then you have your elder grays that are there with the love and the feeling, and then the small children grays. They can be fly ships. I mean, they call them. His best way to explain were they were children, but these children can fly ships, they can do healings, they can do, they do all of this. They can even do the examinations, but they like to work with the children themselves. They enjoy working with other children that come on board or that they come and see. Though, in fact, my kids had experiences seeing these little children, showing them how to levitate on board the ship, levitate a ball, a box, things like that. So
right, heard that.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to me, and I'll tell you why. It's because I'm trying to explain UFO behavior. I've written this book, UFOs Over California, which had a number of weird UFO car chases in them, and pretty much every state I've written about, New York, New Mexico, Nevada, and upcoming Arizona, has these incredible UFO car chases where they're chasing cars down the road, sometimes scaring the wits out of them, but almost doing this cat and mouse game. And several of the participants mentioned, like, what are these, teenagers? and I've got this one case, Miesha, which is in Alabama, I think it was, or Louisiana, that's right, of this guy who was taken on board and into this control room. And he had the distinct impression, yes, they were teenagers. And they were darting around and testing the capabilities of this craft and zooming down at cars and doing this type of thing. And
that explains it, especially chasing people's cars and stuff. That explains it, doesn't it? Teenagers go, hey, this is a kick.
Yeah, teenagers love cars, right?
They love cars, and they love to tease people, harass, and joke around.
Right. A couple of my favorite cases from my latest book, UFOs Over Nevada, there was this group of teenagers who got their pickup truck stuck in the sands in the desert area outside of any city. I forget the exact location, but they were stuck there, and they're like, well, we're gonna have to spend the night. Mm-hmm. And they were lying there in their truck bed, just talking, looking at the stars, and hitting on various subjects when they came upon the subject of UFOs, and said, let's call one down. And maybe it'll help us. And so they did. They meditated on it, and nothing happened, and they didn't think much about it until a few minutes later when this thing comes swooping down, hovers over their truck, lifts it up out of the sand.
Oh, my.
And so, now, I know how this sounds. Any skeptic person's going to laugh their butt off at how ridiculous this sounds, but if you go into this UFO research, you'll find there are dozens of what we call car lift cases. Where cars are lifted up by beams of light. I've got one in Topanga Canyon here. I've got several, pretty much in every state this has occurred that I've investigated so far, written a book about. And that's just one of three.
I had the car lifting with my entire family back when I was 8 years old.
There you go.
Yeah, we were going up a mountain, and everybody fell asleep. And the next thing any of us know is we're on the other side on the bottom of the mountain, and my father's yelling, screaming, because he's bringing the car to a screeching halt. And we had been lifted up and then put over on the other side of the mountain. So we knew they saved us. We'd seen a UFO earlier that day, so we knew that's exactly what it was,
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And pointing to the teenager-like pranksterness of some of these ETs. There's another case in UFOs Over Nevada about where this trucker sees a UFO. He pulls over to look at it, and he's like, wow. And it starts to move closer. He gets a little nervous, jumps back into his truck to race away when he realizes he's not moving. And he looks down at the road, and he's hovering about 5, maybe 10 feet up above the road. This UFO is right above him. He's like, oh my God, and it's there for a couple of seconds when the thing drops his car back onto the road. Literally. And he races away.
Oh, his truck, you mean?
His truck.
Yeah, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, then, see, I'm glad I brought the thing up about the teenagers. That covers a lot of different things. Then, because people might take these things to be that they're hurting them or they're trying to, do things to them. But if you look at it that they're teenagers, it fits absolutely perfectly.
All right. Well, some of the people who are getting abducted are being not abducted by what you would call the doctors, the people who are responsible for, making sure that the race is okay, that their species. And so they have a job to do. They're like military personnel. They're like police officers. They're not emotional because they're busy. They have to get this done.
Right.
But there are the cases where people see humor coming from the Greys, and think other things like this. Mm-hmm. Definitely love and all the holding children and the whole baby presentation and all of this. And what I think we're looking at, and what we don't see is sadistic behavior. We don't really see anything like that. There may be...
No.
The worst I've seen, Miesha, is like pain threshold type tests or emotional testing, where people see just dreadful stuff. But what's also very common, which is freaking me out the most of all, is what you mentioned, the Great Change, the upcoming disasters. Something huge is coming up. If we don't get our act together, it could be really bad. And this is a huge, huge theme, and it's making me increasingly nervous and upset that these ETs keep telling us that the Earth is, society is going to collapse, that there's not going to be any water. And this is a theme that keeps coming up. I have to tell you, this is very consistent with abductees that I've talked to and contactees, that there's going to be atmosphere problems, water problems, societal problems, all kinds of things like this. And this is not only coming from ETs from that matter, it's coming from the Native American elders, it's coming from near-death experiencers, it's coming from out-of-body explorers, it's coming from our own mainstream scientists. So we're looking at, big changes either way. And it should be very interesting to see. I think we can make it through a change without losing, a great portion of our population. But I think we do need to stop this cabal, this greed that's choking our planet. I think their time is done.
Right.
And that's why we're, it's going to be very interesting. I don't know how long this is all going to take to transform. I'm hoping it's slow and gentle. And that we can get rid of money and we can learn how to come together and move into the fifth dimension or whatever it is that's happening.
Right, because you talk to ETs about money and they go, that's kind of a useless concept.
Yeah, it makes no sense, especially when there's enough for everybody. I mean,
absolutely. Right.
We have enough to be rich for everybody. And so this 1%er or this people who are in control of the UFO hardware, or what exactly is going on, I'm not entirely sure, but I think they're losing control. Who's ever in control of suppressing this whole UFO presence is having a rude awakening right now. There's a crumbling cover-up. We're trending towards disclosure very quickly. There's these huge ET sightings like Phoenix Lights and Gulf Breeze and Topanga Canyon and Hudson Valley. And if they want to remain in control of this UFO situation, they have to start hustling to get the ET technology, the healing technology, and the ET energy technology, free energy, to the public before it's too late.
That's right.
So that's what I think is going to happen. I think that they're going to be forced to disclose by the ETs. The ETs are pressing everyone's hand, and they're going to disclose if the government doesn't.
That was my next question. I'm glad you answered it already. That was my question, because I don't believe that the government will disclose it because they have too much to lose, because then they'd have to admit to what they've been doing and how they've been hiding and what they've been doing to the populace and all of that stuff,
Right. So, yeah, right. Well, the truth is they have disclosed bit by bit. Each president certainly has made very public statements about UFOs and aliens.
Yeah.
Some really revealing. So there's kind of a level of disclosure that's going on. And it's an open conspiracy at this point. We know UFOs are not going to go away. So I think that we are going to have more events like the Phoenix Lights And I think the government is going to be forced into this, very much like the civil rights movement, with so many videos of real sightings. And if someone's going to videotape an abduction, it's going to happen, or landing, or something that's, incontrovertible, very much like Mexico City happened during the eclipse, which is why, they're very forthcoming. I'm not sure if it's going to be the U.S. who's going to disclose.
I'm not either.
It might be, Brazil, or Canada, or Mexico, or France, or probably one of them.
Even Russia.
yeah, but who knows?
That's true.
It's going to happen. I know that, and I don't think it's very long.
I don't think so either. I think it's more and more of us are being told. And then we are also getting messages that there's something big going to be happening in September. Have you heard that from you people? From people?
September in particular, no. I have not heard that.
I was told September. Some other people have been told September that something big is September. Of course, this month is supposed to be, the energies are coming into this planet are just amazing. And some people are saying that there's something going to happen to some of the people who can't handle the energy. So I don't know. I haven't heard.
It's funny. I keep hearing this from different sources. I heard this from, of all things, Bruce Moen, who's an out-of-body traveler, who's written like 4 books on this, out-of-body astral travel, and contacted a group of ETs and who appear to be a gray variation, and or a hive mind type thing, a collective, if you will, and said that there's this energy that's being beamed towards our planet, which is this huge, powerful love energy, that we're moving up a step in vibration, and it's going to cause chaos in some ways, but is ultimately a good thing.
The vibration is too high for them, and they're not going to be able to handle it. And hopefully, maybe it's the cabal. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, boy, there's no doubt that there's what you would call evil on our planet.
Yeah.
And I think that we are seeing a real purging of it, which is why, media is very chaotic right now, and there's all this negativity we see because it's coming out. We're getting aware of it, and people are being called out, and now we all know about these 1%ers, and we're not having it. We've got people doing protests, and I think we're really moving together very quickly, and people are becoming much more psychic. The children these days are universally much more accepting of what used to be taboo subjects.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's gay marriage is kind of an example of how people are becoming much more liberal and open-minded, and I think spiritually accepting of others. So I think that's what we're moving towards, and I have high hopes for humanity. Most people, I think, will, if you ask them, will give you the shirt off their back. They will help you. We just have a small percentage who is just hanging on, and we need to, and it's largely the people who are in power.
Oh, yes, exactly.
So it's a very weird situation. I think we're going to take our own power back, and this is another avenue I'm doing, in my own path in life, is the astral travel thing, and teaching people how to raise their own awareness and take, how to control their own, do their own mind control their own mind, how to do astral travel and become psychically developed and aware, because that's connected to all this for sure.
Yeah, that was good. My next question, I was going to ask you to talk about the astral travel, because I know I have that book. I have not got to read it yet, and I've got to get to it. But a lot going on in my life. So tell us about how you started astral traveling. Because when we talked about it, it took the whole unknown fear thing away from it when you were explaining it, and how that it can be done, and how advantageous it can be to a person's conscious experience.
Right. Oh, it's probably my favorite subject, eclipsing even UFOs, because it touches you and really affects your life in this incredibly positive way. I've read all the books on it. I've experienced it myself. I became interested, following the death of my mother in 1984. I saw her ghost, thought I was hallucinating, didn't tell anybody, got interested in dreams, was writing down my dreams, picked up a book on lucid dreaming, which kind of transformed to an interest in out-of-body experiences, picked up Robert Monroe's book, who was the pioneer in this, certainly in modern times. And he explained in the back of the book how to do it. I thought, well, this is ridiculous, but I'll give it a try. And the exercises worked. I couldn't believe it. I remember the first experience is I popped out of my body. I thought, oh my God, I've died. This is horrible. I am terrified. And popped back into my body, woke up and got really excited and realized I had done it. And yeah, it was scary when I was out, but that was my first time.
Well, what was the feeling of it when you were out? I mean, because I've worked on out of body, and what happens is I get my whole body's tingling to the point that it's kind of uncomfortable.
Right. That's called the vibratory state.
Okay.
And that's when your physical body is reaching the same vibration as the astral world, the astral plane, astral dimension.
Okay.
So it's a step up in vibration, and it can be uncomfortable. And it feels, it's been described as being next to a jet engine or being electrocuted. Certainly that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah, electrocuted. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because I'm going, am I doing this right?
Yeah, you were primed. That's exactly what you want to get to. And yes, you can bypass that eventually. For Robert Monroe described it as a slight electrical shock. I thought, what a liar, because I thought I was being electrocuted.
Yeah.
The second time, I went out of body, I thought I had stuck my finger in the light socket next to my bed. And I was being electrocuted because I popped out of my body and I flew across the hall into the bathroom, looked into the mirror, nothing's there. I'm like, oh, I'm doing it. And got pulled back into my body. So that was the second time, I just went on from there. I would get out for a few seconds and just become too excited. I was too happy, and I would fall unconscious. And I finally got to the point where I could, just relax and started to be able to learn how to move, which was very difficult as well. That took a whole lot of visualizations and trying and just kind of trial and error. And learned how to do that and got to the point where I could, stay awake for a couple of minutes at a time, move through walls, fly above the house, fly through the neighborhood, fly to other cities, fly to friends' homes. I got verification that this was not dreams by, visiting distant locations and then going there. So that's how it started, and pretty quickly you get pulled off into the other dimensions. And I was able to contact my mother who had died. That was awesome. I contacted her many times and continue to do so. And in fact, there isn't a deceased person in my life who, was a loved one that I haven't made contact with after they've died.
There isn't one?
Oh, no, every single one, I've been able to contact.
So, okay, I have to ask this. All right. So, when two questions. The first question is, does that electrical charge, does it lessen, or do you just get used to it and then just accept it and go, all right, kind of surrender?
It lessens. Not to say that it doesn't come back sometimes. It's what it's called an exit sensation. And so when you're ready, basically to do the astral travel, it's 100% safe. It's safe as sleeping, pretty much. No danger really of getting locked out or possessed or anything like this. This is not what I found.
Oh.
Maybe one or two cases similar to that where people were, had a negative experience. But what I found actually was 20-some cases of people being healed of physical illness, people returning with enormous amounts of energy, people returning with ideas and music and all kinds of wonderful things, memories of past lives. It wakens you up psychically incredibly. Everyone does it at night. They just don't remember. So it's really a trick of memory and learning to remember your dreams and kind of moving your consciousness into the dream state. And it's a simple 3-step process where you relax your physical body as much as you can till you feel one of a number of sensations, which I would say include perhaps dizziness or vertigo, or lightness or heaviness, a sensation of movement, or ideally a very heavy-duty vibration. And so, and you will hear very loud noises, maybe like furniture banging or jet engines, even swearing or people talking or images from movies you just saw swarming through your head as you pull out. This is kind of what the hellish realm, which is right pressed up against Earth. And you kind of rise up right through that and you pop out into the higher astral planes, generally.
So what do the higher astral planes look like?
There's no words, Miesha. I get so homesick. This is the biggest danger, really, of astral travel is like, that feeling. It's so beautiful. The colors there are twice as vibrant, easily much more than that. It's like the Land Over the Wizard of Oz, that movie. Suddenly everything's in color. Suddenly you're seeing for the first time.
Right.
So everything's crystal clear. Everything has a certain sparkle to it that's very hard to describe other than it's as if the entire world is made of light, which it kind of is.
Right.
In fact, the physical plane, as you get into this, you realize that it's purely hallucinatory as well.
Right.
It is composed of energy. It's basically frozen thought forms. And the real world is the astral world. And the higher dimensions are even more intense. Oh my God. And it's just so wonderful. You cannot be in a bad mood. I don't care what kind of mood you're in. You're up in what I would call the park area, the heavenly realms. It's fabulous. It's wonderful. And I always want to stay there. And I get kicked out, whenever I stay too long. A tunnel will open up and I get sucked back down.
Do you suppose maybe there's only a certain amount of time that we can be out that way that is so that it's safe to our body? Would you say, maybe?
I think that there's something to that because we do have to, feed ourselves and things like this. But the astral world is the real world. And what I'm finding is, there's a number of cases. A guy had chronic liver disease, sarcoidosis, couldn't cure it, and had an out-of-body experience in which it was cured. The physical maladies are often related to past lives, it turns out.
Oh, yes. They are.
So people will go through past life regression and suddenly they find out that they're cured of an illness. And out-of-body experiences does this sort of thing. It pulls you into past lives so you can resolve old traumas. And this is, I think, one of the methods of curing. I've been taken to heal people. I've been healed myself. So astral travel is the bomb. I mean, I cannot recommend it enough. Flying alone is worth the price of admission. Anyone can do it. There's no qualification. There's only, I would say, the major obstacles are laziness and skepticism and just not enough time. People are just so tired and overworked
that they end up falling asleep instead of doing the out of body.
Right. And the benefits are just numerous. You get to be conscious all night. So you're basically, adding 1/3 to your lifespan of experiences. The experiences you can have are incredible. The astral body is also called the desire body because this is where, all the emotions come from and all your lust and your greed and all your gluttony and all of this comes from there. And so when you go out of body, it hits you full force. And this can be an obstacle for people, or it can be, a benefit. It's a great way to work out your issues. I was overcome with gluttony often. I'd create these feasts of food. And I know I'm not alone in this because I've read about it. And you can eat whatever you want. Just loads and loads and loads of it. And I was doing it uncontrollably. I had anger issues. I had gluttony issues. I had lust issues. So you create fantasies of whatever you want to do. and it's more real than it is on Earth, really.
Okay, so you're doing all this on the other, we'll call it the other side of whatever you call it. What do you call it?
Yeah.
They're astrally on the other side. And so you can create all these things. And so is it kind of like working through and clearing these things away? Is that what are you working on these things over there? Is that what you're doing?
Well, it all depends on your choice. If you want to just if you want to just sit there and dwell on, your pleasures and pleasuring yourself, well, you certainly can. Because the astral planes are extremely responsive to thoughts. And that's something every astral traveler will tell you and cannot be emphasized enough. So whatever vibration you're putting out, you're going to get. So this is why, it's murderers and drug addicts and evil people are, kind of stuck there. It's a real problem with ghosts and this type of thing. And even people who die of violent accidents because they're in this negative state that's very hard to break out of. But if you concentrate on love and light, you'll be fine. The vast majority of people are not going to have a problem. But there's a real ghost problem as well, because the astral planes are so responsive to thoughts. Okay. And you can create whatever you want. And some say it's an obstacle. I enjoyed it. I have to tell you. And once I got that over with, and I sort of sated my desires, whatever it was, to eat or have sex or whatever you want to do, fly around. Then once that's done, you can move on to other things, such as learning about your past lives. You just call it, I want to see a past life. But I have to warn you, if you do that, it'll probably take you to the most traumatic scene of that life, which is often the death scene. Or, whatever issue you need to work with. But you can meet your spirit guides. You can go to the Akashic Plains. The best is visiting deceased loved ones. I can't tell you the reunions I've had are so intense to, meet your friends who have died, or your parents, or your siblings, or your pets even. Oh, my pet. I couldn't believe it one time, came there to see her, my dog Maxine, who I'd seen many times. She said hi. It almost floored me. And later read, several other accounts where pets actually do talk. Oh. They learn how to do this and evolve a little bit.
On the other side, everybody's pretty equal. And there's the oneness there, so there's no, superior race or breed. Like when we think of animals as inferior to us, but they're not there. Everybody's the same, evidently.
Well, there isn't no killing, because you can't. You can't physically be hurt, and animals are not hunting each other.
Right.
And you don't need to eat. You don't need to breathe. That was really disconcerting for me a couple of times. I'd be sitting there, out of body, high up on the plains, and I'm like, God, I'm not breathing. This is weird. And sight is different. You can alter your sight so you can see 360 degrees around you.
Whoa.
Or you can zoom, do a zoom effect. And there is no, you can, what I would call teleport. So distance doesn't become a factor. And without distance, without, acceleration, time collapses.
Okay.
So this is how you can visit past events when you're out of body, or future events. And every single time, well, not every single time, but most times when I had this out of body experience of whatever kind, I'd come back with this memory, which was kind of a dream memory, slightly a different type of consciousness. And it was always precognitive. It would be, a gift I would get that day, or an unusual visitor, or, a disaster on TV. Generally an unusual event, not one that I would experience each day. But had a huge, huge awakening in psychic awareness, which was my favorite, result of all this, I would say, because it affects your physical life.
So, wow, I can't wait now to do this again, because you talk to people about they say that you have, as you're going up or something, you might go by the lower astral realms, and there might be beings or not so positive things trying to pull you in.
Right.
How do you get by that safely?
Well, the thing to remember is when you're not physical, you can't be hurt.
Okay.
And this is a hard concept to get through, because you have certain habits. You don't jump in front of cars. I'd often fly over the telephone wires when I was out of body because, I don't want to fly through them. I could hurt me. Eventually I learned, I can go right through them. So this is a concept you want to learn. And this is something I learned pretty early on. And this is, I think, why I was able to do so well. Because some of the early books are very cautionary and things like this.
Yeah, Moreau was kind of cautionary.
And I'm saying, no, this is safe. You have a silver cord, which will pull you back into your body. And the problem is staying out, not, getting back in. So the moment you feel fear, the moment you feel uncomfortable, the moment you think about your body, you are pretty much automatically pulled back in. We all have spirit guides, guardian angels, who are around us, particularly when we are doing this activity, and often will guide us, even if you're not aware of it. So removing the fear is a difficult obstacle because we're very fear-drenched here. And there's technologies that are literally sending out fear waves to frighten people and things like this. So
sure,
getting over it is difficult. Yeah, I know, but that's the main thing. You got to remember you're safe, and you can surround yourself with white light if that makes you feel comfortable. But if the second you feel like, no, this is too much for me, just think about your body. Open and close your eyes, wiggle your fingers, move your head back and forth. That'll bring you right back. And so even if you're in some energetic trap, which is, I think, or encountering a hostile entity, I'd say the worst that has happened to me is, once I was flying along, and something grabbed my foot, and it wasn't human. It was this weird sucker thing.
Oh.
I don't know what it was, but I reached back and I peeled its little fingers off, and I moved up to the upper planes. Like I said, there's a lot of people who do astral travel never realize this, but there is this lower dimension that's very negative. It's the hellish realm, is what I would call. And I've been there. It's very unpleasant. It's very full of people who are in a wretched state, screaming, very unhappy.
And you hear?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. Very self-absorbed, very unhappy in whatever respect. And most people fly right through that. They never see it.
Oh.
But when you pop out of your body, often for the first few times, you're right there still kind of on the lower realms because you're on Earth and you're exploring the physical world. And another negative thing that happened to me was I popped out of my body and I flew around the house. I'm like, this is cool. I'm doing it again. This is so awesome. And I flew out the front door, and there were 3 men out there. And I knew instantly that these weren't what I would call a projection, a mental projection that I can interact with. These were real people. You can tell by the quality of their presence. It's immediately apparent. And they were not nice guys. These were clearly gangsters or thugs, murderers, criminals. And 3 of them, and they looked at me, and they wanted to attack me. And so I just went back. I'm going back inside, and went back to my body.
Oh, okay. So that's what you can do if you, it's the fight or flight kind of thing. If you see something that's not good, then just pull yourself back.
Right. Well, exactly. Once I had a friend who died of alcoholism, and this is actually not too long ago, and wanted to see him, and had an out-of-body experience where I found him, and he was in a very dark state. There was no light around him. Normally when I meet someone who's deceased, they're in the heavenly realms. And it's beautiful. And he was not. He was in this dark, dark place, which was one of the upper of the lower realms, right? Okay. And he was like, oh, I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for this, is all he could say.
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, I'm coming back later. God bless you. And I sent him love, because I couldn't do anything. And I went back maybe a month or two later, popped out of body and heard his voice. He's like, Preston, and I'm like, Roger. And I was on this slightly higher plane. There was still a lower plane, though. The energy was kind of chaotic, but it was Earth-like. It's very Earth-like over there. There are buildings, there are roads, even cars, trees. It's extremely, very much like it is here, depending on how high up you go. And so this was one of the lower ones, very, very much like here. And I met with him. He was behind a barrier. I couldn't cross it, and neither could he. And he thanked me for sending all the love his way. Love bombs is what he called them. Because I would do this meditation where, bomb him with love. And I couldn't believe it. He got it. And he thanked me for it, and that was all we could do because this hostile guy attacked me. And he wanted to chase me away, and I was running around through this place for quite some time. 5, 10, 15 minutes. He even manifested a car and tried to run me over and pin me to a tree. And that's when I'm like, all right, I'm done. So I just said, I'm going back. And I got pulled back into my body.
Oh.
But yeah, I've been attacked by wild animals once. That was pretty scary.
Now, we are getting short on time, so before you tell that story, we can go out with that story. I want you to tell them where they can get your book and where your books. You have many books and like this book here, because this kind of is a step-by-step to help people learn how to do and what they can expect out there in the astral traveling, right?
Right. It's called Out of Body Exploring, a beginner's approach, a beginner's to expert, really, because towards the end there, I think I had some pretty powerful experiences, and still having them, by the way. And yeah, you can get my books on my website, or on Amazon.com, or BarnesandNoble.com, or bookstores. My website is actually my name, Preston Dennett. If you Google that, it'll take you right there. The actual address is Preston Dennett, 2 N's, 2 T's, PrestonDennett.weebly.com. And I have all my books there, excerpts. You can contact me through my website. I'm always interested in, hearing from people, whether they have a story they want to share or a question that they need answering. I'd be more than happy to correspond with people. And I really appreciate this opportunity, Miesha, because this is important subjects. UFOs and out-of-body exploring.
Oh, yes, it is.
Can change your life.
Well, we should have you come back on the show sometime, and we'll talk more about. You've got tremendous amount of other books that we can talk about as well. But I wanted to hit on these 3 books the most that had great information. So,
right. Well, as far as UFOs, a last message I would like to leave with people is that they're not going to go away. I don't think that they're something you have to be scared of. I think their behavior falls under the normal human umbrella of behavior, and in fact is actually skewed to the benevolent side in the fact that we don't see Nazi-like behavior. We don't see a lot of that type of thing. And what we see is a lot of interest in us and in healing and in healing our planet. And in fact, UFOs are such an important subject that they could solve what I call the 3 big E's. The energy crisis, the economic crisis, and the environmental crisis. We have the technology to solve all 3 of those in one shebang when this cabal, finally dissolves or makes the right decision or moves, in the right direction, which is going to happen. So that's, I think, the important message about UFOs. For those who are skeptics who think UFOs have nothing to do with me, oh, yes, they do. They absolutely do. This whole economic crisis would be gone. We'd have free energy. It would be a changed world, and it will be. This is how important UFOs are.
Yes.
And as far as out-of-body exploring, equally important, because once you do these out-of-body exploring, suddenly you realize you are not yourself. You are connected to each person in a way that makes you very much like the Greys in that we're a collective. We're humanity. We are one being. And we are all resonating together and are a very telepathic race. And so a lot of the troubles other people have really reflect on the individual, no matter who they are. And as each person raises their level of consciousness, and it has a huge effect on humanity as a whole. And this is what we're trending towards again. I think everybody's going to be doing this astral travel. I think it's so transformative, so healing, so raises your awareness that I can't see it moving any other way. I think it's a natural step on people's spiritual evolution, and we're going to see a lot of people doing it, whether it's lucid dreaming, and boy, the benefits of healing and of psychic awareness in terms of precognition, of visions of the future, of all kinds of this stuff, clairvoyance, is very powerful, and I cannot recommend it enough. It's so easy to do. I wish everyone would just try it. It's a 3-step process. Do I have time to give the steps real quick?
Sure.
The first step is physically relaxing. You can do this when you're falling asleep or waking up, or any time, really. You want to relax again till you start to feel one of those sensations I listed earlier. Just completely physically relax. Then you want to mentally relax. Mm-hmm. And by that I mean looking at your thoughts and not identifying with them. Just look at them until they start to turn into images, or you can hear them. Let them pass by. Okay. Don't attach yourself to them. Don't try to erase them. Just sort of step back from them a little bit.
Right.
Let them slow down, because we all have, there's so many sleep problems these days. It's ridiculous. Because we're being fed this constant stream. And so your stream of consciousness, you have to slow it down a little bit, step back, and mentally relax. And replace it instead with affirmations and visualizations.
Okay.
And by that I mean an affirmation is, I'm powerful. Tonight I will go out of body. I will remember everything that happens to me. I am safe. I want to meet my spirit guides. Or something like this. Mm-hmm. I am out of body. Whatever you want to connect with. Mm-hmm. I would recommend just saying, I will remember everything that happens to me tonight. Tonight I will go out of body. And say that 10 times. And allow that to be your only thought. You can do it. This is mind control on your level. Controlling yourself. And then what you move to is visualizations. And by this you can visualize a loved one. It's what I call the love bridge. It will take you directly to them on the other side. It's very easy and bypasses all the unpleasant exit sensations. Mm-hmm. Or you can visualize a room or a place, a home that you know very well, and suddenly it'll break out into crystal clarity and you'll step into it like a living painting. It's awesome.
Wow. Oh.
Or you can just simply do what I would call a emotion-related visualization. And by that I mean, imagine you're swinging on a swing set, back and forth, or on the bow of a boat going up and down, or an escalator going up, or floating up like mist, or rolling over in bed. A very good one is to imagine yourself running, just running down the pathway at a soft pace, or spinning like Wonder Woman. Mm. All of these actions are motion, and what happens is your body is so relaxed that it spins your astral body right out. And you'll feel a sensation of very strong vertigo, and you'll have a difficult time seeing and moving, maybe initially, maybe not. Mm-hmm. And you'll be out of your body. It'll be the most stunning, amazing thing that's ever happened to you. And you can go visit your past lives, and go to the Akashic Library and learn about yourself, or meet your spirit guides.
Oh, great. This has been a wonderful show, Preston. Thanks so much for coming. And you can find out about my groups at starseedawakening.org. Thank you, Preston.
Thanks.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another?
Extra big-ass fries.
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase.
No.
I'm sorry you're having
trouble.
trouble.
Come on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener-supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. This country is founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Oh, Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said. He also said that every generation needs a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a